In business today, three things to know. First, Germany's tight squeeze on Europe. The continent's largest economy slumps into the red, complicating both Europe's economy and the Russian-Ukraine crisis. Then, ghost town. Atlantic City's casinos are reeling. What this means for the iconic American city, the gaming industry nationwide, and even Governor Chris Christie's presidential ambitions. And eye naked on the iCloud, how nude selfies of celebrities were hacked on Apple's cloud storage platform, and how you can protect your most revealing photos. Arise Exchange starts now. Hello, I'm Andrew Schmertz. We'll get to the business news of the day in a moment, but we begin with word that another American journalist has been murdered by the group ISIS in Syria. Late today, ISIS released a video that purportedly shows the execution of Steven Sotloff. The group now says British journalist David Haines is probably next. Our senior Washington correspondent Colin Campbell is here with reaction from the White House. Colin.
Hi, Andrew. The White House is still confirming officially whether or not this was Steven Sotloff in the video, but all of the indications point that this is the case, that Steven Sotloff was murdered by the Islamic State, otherwise known as ISIS or ISIL. They're looking at the footage of the purported person who killed Sotloff, and they say that he has a similar build, that he has the same accent, and that it was the same location, or at least a very similar location as what we saw in the recording last month of James Foley, the last American journalist who was killed in the hands of the Islamic State. So the White House is looking at those details now. They're also trying to strategize over a reaction to them. At the same time, the person in the video seemed to taunt the White House, saying, "I'm back, Obama. I'm back," for the arrogant policy towards the Islamic State. So they seem to be taunting the White House as well shortly before this allegedly took place, Andrew.
And Colin, this appears to be, they think, a British national, correct? So far from what they know. And when you say the taunting, there are more threats coming.
Yeah, intelligence says that there could possibly be two more Americans and a British national held captive by the Islamic State. But of course, towards the end of the recording, something that I would not want our viewers to watch, a very gruesome video. But they do seem to say that a British national could be next.
And this all goes to the airstrikes that the U.S. has been conducting in Iraq?
That's right. If we remember in the Foley recording, it talked about how airstrikes have killed Islamic militants. And so they said that they would do this in retribution, kill Foley in retribution for that, in a similar situation for Sotloff. And they said they would do it again with this British national and possibly others who they may capture who have Western allied interests.
Okay, Colin Campbell in Washington. You'll have a lot more at 6 o'clock Eastern Time on Arise America. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Turning to business now, Europe's largest economy is heading in the wrong direction, led by slowing exports. Germany contracted in the second quarter. This comes as Europe needs all the economic might it could muster if it intends to pursue tougher sanctions on Russia in tackling the Ukraine crisis. Why do we care so much about Germany? It's not just the largest economy in Europe, it's the fourth largest in the world, and weakness in Germany may give the U.S. Federal Reserve some cover to keep interest rates low. For his take on this news and some other economic data today is Jim Awad, chairman of Plimsoll Mark Capital. Jim, welcome back to Rise Exchange as always. So first, put Germany in context. What exactly happened here, and did it surprise anybody?
Well, it's an export-oriented economy. They're very efficient and have built up an export machine. And two things are happening. The rest of Europe has slipped back into recession. So their exports to Europe are down. And then you've got the Ukrainian situation. So you have the sanctions on Russia, so their exports to Russia are down. And so
they are, I believe, Russia's largest trading partner.
Yes, absolutely. And so those are the two engines that drive the exports to Europe, to a lesser extent to China and other countries. But those are their two largest trading partners, and business, frankly, stinks.
First quarter for Germany was pretty strong. Some economists said this is just a blip, while others say this is actually just the beginning beginning of a more steeper downturn?
Well, it depends what happens. Then with the Ukrainian situation, does that get worse or get solved? And then in the rest of Europe, does the ECB take further actions to stimulate the economies, or do they sort of stagnate here? So we don't know. So I wouldn't make a big bet either way, but I would stay very current on the news and the ECB is going to meet this Thursday.
Yeah, and that was weighing a little bit on the markets today, from what we understand, though not any significant real sell-off. What do you think the European Central Bank will do? And how does that impact the U.S.?
Right. Well, my guess is they will not yet do quantitative easing, which the market sort of wants.
Pumping money back into the economy.
Right. That they would do the large-scale asset purchases like the Fed did here. It's much more difficult to do over there for technical reasons, but the markets seem to want it. So my guess is that they will wait for more time for the recent easing that they did, which was just in June, to take effect. So I think it's likely the markets will be a little disappointed in what they will do on Thursday. But in terms of the U.S., it's actually what's going on there is helpful to the U.S. financial markets because we are growing and accelerating. All the news is good, and yet our treasuries are staying low and the yields are going down. And what that means is that stock valuations can go higher with treasuries lower. And the reason for that is that interest rates are so low in Germany that people are coming to the U.S. for higher yields.
Because this is the only place you can go to make a little bit of money in the bond market.
Right. You're getting less than 1% in Germany and 2.4 here.
And is it right at the beginning where I said that this can give the U.S. Fed some cover to keep interest rates low?
You know, second derivative, maybe. But I think what's going to drive the Fed is the U.S. employment data and U.S. wage inflation. The Fed desperately wants to see wage inflation accelerate. The financial markets, on the other hand, are very afraid of wage growth accelerating because it could lead to inflation and higher interest rates. And I think those are the variables that are going to drive the Fed rather than what's going on in Europe. But, you know, by the way, the fact that Europe is weak does brings commodity prices down, keeps inflation lower, and does give the Fed a little bit more breathing room.
And if the interest rates stay low, we should look at the housing market possibly starting to pick back up in the fall.
But not in a dramatic way, because the capital available to housing has shrunken dramatically. People have pulled back from the mortgage market. Mortgage standards are very high. Investor demand for housing, that's basically done. And you don't have the wage growth to support people getting mortgages, and it's very hard to get mortgages. So a little bit of a help to the housing market.
You say that the economy in Europe stinks, but frankly, the world situation kind of stinks right now, yet the markets continue here not to react to that. What kind of threat does that remain as an overhang?
Well, the markets are assuming that the events overseas don't affect the U.S. economy. And at this point, that's probably still a good bet. And the U.S. economy is getting better, which is why the markets have basically been strong. If you had a real war in Europe between Russia and it pulled NATO in some way, and then in the Middle East, if ISIS somehow or other was able to get disrupt oil supplies, or the trouble in any one of those countries affected oil supplies, that would test the market's assumption that the U.S. economy is insulated.
And right now, as we'll see, oil keeps falling. Jim Awad, right. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And it was a mixed day on Wall Street right now. Stocks did pull back a little bit moderately. Let's take a look at the final numbers. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 32.50 to 17,065. The S&P 500 just about $1.20 back to 20.02. And the NASDAQ did have an day up 1792. Taking a look at some of the stocks we're watching today, Dollar General upped its ante for rival Family Dollar by boosting its offer to $80 a share and did warn of a hostile takeover if the board doesn't agree to talks. Family Dollar had rejected Dollar General's initial proposal of $78.50 a share. Dollar General closing up 34 cents. McDonald's says it's increasing its audits on food suppliers in China after a food scandal caused sales there to plummet. The world's largest fast food chain says it's pushing for more video monitoring and inspections by quality control specialists on all of its meat production facilities. McDonald's back 92 cents. And Home Depot says it's working with investigators after security agency Krebs reported stolen company data appeared on black market sites. Krebs says the massive data breach may have extended across Home Depot stores nationwide. Home Depot down $1.88. Taking a look at commodities, gold closing at $12.60.40 an ounce. And as we were talking about, oil now down to $93 a barrel. Some other economic news out today. Another sign U.S. manufacturing is getting back on track. Manufacturing grew in August at the strongest pace in more than 3 years. The Institute for Supply Management's Manufacturing Index, it's a mouthful, rose to 59 from 57.1 in July. That's the highest reading since March of 2011, and measures anything above 50 signals that manufacturing is growing. And the nation's construction spending rebounded in July, rising by the largest amount in more than 2 years. The Commerce Department saying that spending rose 1.8% in July, the biggest one-month gain since May of 2012. The House is losing in Atlantic City, where there are growing fears the iconic American city could one day be a ghost town. Several casinos have closed, with more on the brink. The high-end Revel Casino became the latest, closing this weekend. Showboat Casino is going to close this week, and Trump Plaza, no longer affiliated with Donald Trump, he keeps reminding us of that, will shut its doors soon. In just the past 6 years, gambling revenue in Atlantic City has fallen by more than half. And luck in the casino business is turning against more than just Atlantic City. Nationwide, there is a shift of where people are gambling. Bill Brandt is the president and CEO of Development Specialists, a firm known for its expertise on municipalities in financial trouble and turnarounds. Bill, welcome back to Arise Exchange.
It is always good to be here. Thank you so much.
Any of us who have gone to Atlantic City over the last 10 years knew that this city was headed in this direction, right? I mean, the casinos seemed empty. The city was run down. Was this anything of a surprise that these casinos, clearly to the investors of Revel, who put in a whole bunch of money just 2 years ago, but
it was not a surprise. There are three concurrent trends in the casino industry, which are briefly described. First, age with wisdom. You and I, at least I, am old enough to remember when you wanted to gamble in this country, you took a plane to Las Vegas. Las Vegas has been supplanted by many other casino destinations, so much so that Las Vegas now depends more on convention business than it does on gambling business in terms of trying to support its economy, and it's made that transition. Everybody who has decided, they've watched Atlantic City grow, has decided that with tax revenue on houses and real estate taxes capped, they need their own casinos. So virtually every municipality is allowing casinos to happen. So somebody asked me earlier, are Americans not gambling as much? No, they're gambling more.
Sure.
They're just doing it closer to home. And the third trend is these casinos will continue to proliferate, and so the ones that will be the winners will be the newest, flashiest ones, and there are ones coming online every day, supplanting the old ones.
When you mentioned age, I was thinking that you were going to say that if you look at who's going to Atlantic City, it continues to be people like my grandma who used to go. They never seem to really draw in younger people.
No, and they did a lot of panache and pizzazz to draw in younger people. Obviously, Atlantic City has a problem drawing in younger people. But, you know, younger people, with the proliferation of casinos, you can go to O'Hare in Chicago, you can go to any of the Indian casinos in California and have a quick party night and get home the same night, which is much more attractive in terms of the budgets for most of these younger people.
It seems that Atlantic City never was able to transition itself like Las Vegas did, which is into a whole entire family entertainment center, and at the same time facing competition from Mohegan Sun in Connecticut and Pennsylvania and all these other casinos popping up. But didn't New Jersey itself hurt gaming in Atlantic City by legalizing online gaming?
Absolutely. But the other problem is what hurts Atlantic City most of all is airport. There is a nice small airport in Atlantic City, but in Vegas, you can get from anywhere in the country to Vegas in shorthand. You can't get to Atlantic City unless you actually are heading to Atlantic City, and once there, it isn't easy to leave very quickly unless you want to drive all the way back to Philly. That's part of its problem. Most of the casinos, the ones they talk about in Chicago, for example, are being built right by the airport. Ease of access.
Okay, so two questions. First, can Atlantic City turn itself around? But second, is this sort of a canary in the coal mine for all those new casinos being built, planned to be built in New York, and that are being proposed in Pennsylvania?
Well, let's answer the second question first. For the new casinos planning to be built in New York and New Jersey, all they're going to do is cannibalize the existing marketplace. And the demographic trends have shown, as you look at the gambling, that people go to the newest, flashiest place, they try something new, and they stay there until it's supplanted by the next newest, flashiest place. And that's going to be the trend for a long time, as long as civic leaders think they can't raise real estate taxes, and so gambling is the solution. The second answer is it the end for Atlantic City? It's the end for Atlantic City as a gaming destination, but as you point out, that probably was in the cards 5 or 6 years ago. Atlantic City needs to do what Atlantic City did in the 20s and 30s, make itself a destination on the Jersey Shore.
Maybe they need to do something else, make itself a destination. I do want to ask one quick question.
But without an airport, that's tough.
That's tough. One quick question, though, a political question. How badly does this hurt the governor who may be running for president?
Governor Christie? I don't think it. I think that I think the governor hurt himself more on his foreign policy gaffes over the weekend than Atlantic City is going to hurt him. I think Atlantic City has been on this trend for a while, and I think the Jersey public doesn't tag Christie with this any more than they tag Corzine with this. This is just the way of the world with a casino now on every block.
Okay, Bill Brandt, thank you so much.
Thank you as always.
Coming up, what would a GOP takeover of the Senate mean for business legislation? You're watching Arise Exchange.
I think news does make people put things in black and white terms just so that they have a dividing line between what their viewers like and dislike.
When they see a person of color, they either think that they're not going to do anything, they're either on drugs or they got pregnant at an early age, and I just want to say that that's not true.
It tends to reflect more the interests of the upper income people and the upper income interests.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
I think news does make people put things in black and white terms just so that they have a dividing line between what their viewers like and dislike.
When they see a person of color, they either think that they're not going to do anything, they're either on drugs or they got pregnant at an early age, and I just want to say that that's not true.
It tends to reflect more the interests of the upper income people and the upper income interests.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
The polls seem to favor the GOP controlling both chambers of Congress next year, and Senate Republicans are starting to put together an agenda. Republicans are gearing up to pass a range of issues and hopefully, they think, avoid political wrangling. Grace Marie Turner, the president of the Galen Institute, joins us now with more. Grace Marie, thank you and welcome back to Arise Exchange.
Thank you.
First, why don't you handicap the races for us? There seems to be the most the sort of bookmakers out there are thinking the GOP are going to win the Senate.
Well, my expertise is policy, not politics, but all of the indications are that there are at least 12 seats currently held by Democrats that are in play, and Republicans only need to pick up 6 in order to take control of the Senate next year. And I think that most people are handicapping that as a good 2/3 to 3/4 chance that the Republicans will, in fact. But, it's a long time till November the 5th. November the 5th or November the 4th? November the 4th. And a lot can happen in the next 2 months.
Okay, so what are some of the proposals that the Senate Republicans are putting out there that you think they would want to advance as quickly as possible?
A number of them are going to have to do with Obamacare, but I think that one of the things that Republicans really are going to want to show is that they can govern. They want to not have all of these shows of shutting down the government to make a point, but to really show that they have a positive policy agenda. So that may mean repealing some of the most onerous parts, for example, of the health law, like the medical device tax and the employer mandate that are really a drag on the economy.
But, you said that they want to show that they can govern. Isn't arguing over Obamacare a little bit of a losing issue for them as long as President Obama is in the White House? He's got to put his pen to paper on anything that they pass.
Well, they do, but if you look at the record, the president has signed 16 changes to Obamacare already, including 10
through executive orders, correct?
By this Republican Congress. So there's a track record. If they can get enough bipartisan support, and I think there are for probably half a dozen provisions involving Obamacare, then it would put a lot of pressure on the president to sign them and to move on. And it's likely also that they will be included in larger, even must-pass legislation.
And how do you think the Tea Party policies are impacting the parties on the mainstream Republicans right now?
Well, the Tea Party is always going to be a force, but they really seem also to be realistic in understanding that you can pass full repeal of Obamacare bills till you turn blue in the face in the next 2 years, and the president will not sign them. But he will sign legislation if you do a targeted step-by-step approach, not only to fixing and repealing parts of Obamacare, but also to positive solutions of what people could do instead. For example, if the 4 to 5 million people that now have coverage under Obamacare, if they were to repeal the law, they're going to need to show that they have a positive agenda to make sure those people are not left out in the cold. So they're both positive, what we would do instead, as well as negative, how we're trying to avoid the harm of this law. That I think it's going to be a balance.
What about the issue of regulations? Do you think that the Republicans are going to try to target any sort of the regulatory impact that this administration has had?
Well, the Congressional Review Act is requires Congress to jump through a lot of hoops to get that done. And certainly they're going to do a lot of oversight, a lot of hearings, making sure people understand the impact of these regulations. The regulation, the contraceptive mandate regulation was a regulation, not part of the law, for example, that's caused such a furor. So I think there will be, if the Senate is held by Republicans, you would see a lot more hearings to bring public attention to some of these regulatory changes that are not legal. That we by our tally, there have been 24 changes that the administration has made to this law on its own, most without legal authority. And Congress would have a lot more power to begin to at least bring public attention and perhaps even to roll back some of it.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Grace Marie Turner, we'll have you back on as the election gets closer. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice to talk with you.
Time now for our business ticker stories making headlines across the nation and the world. Detroit's bankruptcy case was in court today. Lawyers for the city arguing that the Motor City should be allowed to cut its debt from $12 billion to about $5 billion. At stake, everything from the pensions of city workers to art owned by Detroit. From Washington to Wall Street, former Republican Congressman Eric Cantor will serve as vice chairman and managing director with investment bank Moelis & Company. Cantor stands to take in a base salary of $400,000 this year with a signing bonus of $400,000 plus $1 million in stock. Cantor stepped down from his congressional seat in August after becoming the first House Majority Leader to lose a primary election. He's certainly a winner in his new job, though. What sounds German but isn't allowed there? The car pickup service Uber has been banned by a Frankfurt court. The ban will remain in place until a hearing later this year to determine whether Uber's services are legal. Uber says it will continue operating, however, in Germany while it appeals the decision. And Tesla says it's building 400 new charging hubs in China. This more than triple the amount of chargers already in the country. Tesla owners will be able to charge up for free. However, other electric car owners will have to pay up to use the hubs. And Hershey's new logo is being blamed for not being too sweet. Take a look at it. That's because the candy maker is adding its famous kiss design next to its name. The problem is, critics say the new logo looks a little like poop emoji, but Hershey says it is sticking with it. Ahead, kick a man while he's down, that's just mean. Kick a dog while he's down, you might then be our favorite person of the day. You're watching Arise Exchange.
I don't think that television news in the United States reflects the diversity of the world. I don't think it does a great job of even reflecting the diversity of the United States.
When you are watching TV, you don't really see a lot of different cultures. There are plenty of other places that people might not even know about.
We are living in a global culture, and you cannot hide news that is happening when there's so much social media.
Arise News, every culture, every angle.
Mainstream news has covered all of the issues of the world, which are like this, through a very narrow lens. And at Arise News, we do things different. We cover every culture, every angle. Our mission is to go to these places, to these communities, whether they're in Africa, whether they're in Europe, Asia, the United States, the Caribbean. And we're going to find these stories, and we're going to tell them to our audience. Stories that they probably never heard of before, and stories that they'll find interesting and engaging.
Time now for our favorite person of the day when we choose one person who grabbed our attention and not for the right reasons. Let this be a lesson for all you self-centered, power-hungry CEOs. You can earn more money than you're worth, send insulting emails, and appear naked in videos with virtually no consequences. But if you kick your dog, you will lose your job. Desmond Haig, CEO of Centerplate, which is a food services company that caters to NFL stadiums, has been fired after video of him surfaced abusing a 1-year-old Doberman Pinscher. Haig was caught on camera inside an elevator at a Vancouver hotel in July, where he is seen choking the dog with his leash and then kicking him. A hotel employee turned the video over to the Canadian Office of the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Their investigation concluded that the dog had been abused before. At first, Haig was put on probation, and he donated $100,000 to animal charities. But for our dog-loving society, that clearly wasn't enough. Today, Centerplate announced Haig was fired, and Canadian prosecutors are now investigating. No word on whether the Doberman has been taken away from him, but we hope so. And so Desmond Haig is our favorite person of the day. Next, a black iCloud, what a celebrity hacking scandal means for you and Apple. You're watching Arise Exchange.
If I was building my own news network, first thing I think I'd want high-quality reporters, very educated, intelligent people.
Hello, I'm Francesca Maxime.
I'm Julian Phillips.
I'm Wendy Gillette.
I'm Sophia Songhai.
I'm Gary Anthony Ramsey. Thank you for joining us here in New York City.
I would like to see more people of color represented in high positions in media.
We've got world-class journalists, veteran journalists who have been in this industry for decades, not just in front of the camera, but behind the scenes as well.
People need to understand the problems that are going on in the community are much closer than we actually think they are.
Kayla Phillips is one of the shoppers who is suing Barney's, and she is here with her attorney. What is it that you want from them?
Not to judge every African-American person that comes in your store.
Apple is denying reports that its operating systems iCloud and Find My iPhone were hacked after hundreds of nude and semi-nude celebrity photos were leaked after being stolen from the users' private accounts. Jennifer Lawrence, Kate Upton, and Selena Gomez are among the celebs whose pictures were posted on the web forum 4chan. Cybersecurity expert and Berkeley Veritonic Systems CEO Scott Schober has been following the story closely and joins us now. You know, Scott, I think the first thing is, why are you posting naked pictures of yourself anywhere if you don't want other people to see it?
That's the point, yeah. You wonder that. Why are they even doing it? It doesn't make any sense to me at all, but it's happened, so.
Okay, so how did somebody get hold of these pictures? Either Apple was hacked or something was hacked.
Yeah, first when the story broke, everybody thought, well, Apple was hacked, the iCloud or Find My Phone app was hacked. It appears to be more targeted attacks against celebrities where they looked for username, password, and then what the common question is, the security question. So hackers basically worked in that.
And if you're tenacious enough and you kept going at it. But isn't it, don't most of these systems have, if you try 3 or 4 times, you get locked out, and the controversy here is that Apple did not have that in place?
Yeah, and that's a good point that you bring up there. They had it so there was really endless. And you could use different programs like Brute and other things, so you can actually try thousands of combinations of passwords to actually get into someone's account. And that's probably what happened for these celebrities. They worked on this over a period of time, months or maybe even a year, collecting all of these photos.
I kind of have to wonder, though, to what point? I mean, these people have a lot of free time on their hand because are they selling the photos?
Yeah.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. On the black market, in a sense, on the internet, that is, they're selling it to get bitcoins and other things, this digital currency where they can't be traced. And they can get a lot of money for compromised photos with different celebrities.
Okay, so let's say you're a user of iCloud. What do you want to do to protect yourself?
Well, number one, don't put any photos up of yourself nude.
That's the first one.
That's
by the way, we should say here, though, that the way iCloud works is, let's say, I wanted to take a naked selfie of myself on my phone, okay? My phone automatically will connect to iCloud and automatically upload the photos.
Yeah, so you have a remote data center where this actually sits, or several remote data centers where it sits. Even if you think to delete it, it may still reside out there somewhere on a remote hard drive. So you got to be careful what you store on your phone there inadvertently on the cloud. So
so now the next thing, the more serious question is, people have their contacts, they have a whole bunch of other information. You want to protect it. What's the best way?
Well, number one, we should all do, whether we're putting up crazy photos or not, make sure we have a good password. We say this again and again and again. All these celebrities did not have two-factor authentication, which is simply username, a good password, and then when you enter that, it sends a text to your phone to enter yet another code. None of them did. That's why it's easy to breach their accounts. If somebody just simply took that step, they wouldn't have the problem, but that obviously wasn't the case here. So what we need to do is make sure we have a good password, 15 characters or longer.
When you look at iCloud and you take a look at other cloud-based services, for example, like Dropbox, Google Drop, How overall do you think they are from a security standpoint? And are there any ones better than others, frankly?
You know, they're all pretty secure. Apple, I'm a big endorser. I've got stock. I buy every Apple product. They are secure, don't get me wrong, but it's really the user that has to implement a level of security. Monitor what you post and have a secure password so nobody can hack your iCloud, your Google, whatever the case may be.
In the final 20 seconds, Scott, what will the fallout be for Apple on this?
Well, I think it'll give it more publicity. September 9th, there's a lot of announcements. The stock will continue to rise.
Okay, Scott Schober from Berkeley Veritonic Systems, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow on Arise Exchange, the National Football League season officially kicks off this week, and we will have it by the numbers. We'll break down for you who will be the winners and losers. Time now for another look at the markets. The market's pulling back a little bit on news of Germany and some late day, of course, news out of Syria with ISIS. Not a significant sell-off, though. The Dow and the S&P in the red, the NASDAQ in the green by just a little bit. I'm Andrew Schmertz. We'll see you tomorrow on Arise Exchange. Have a good evening.